What can you see? Tell me what you can see. Good morning, lovers. Happy Monday. So, it's been a really long, stressful, treacherous week for me. It's currently Sunday at like 9:30. I have to have this video edited and uploaded by tomorrow. And I have no concepts. So, I'm gonna read you a story. Story time! I wrote this story. It's not just some story I found, so you're welcome. Anyways, oh yeah, it has a name. The story is called Earnest and True. Ooh, mysterious. What could it be about? Only time will tell. Stay tuned for a short message from our sponsors. And we're back. Okay, here we go. It was an easy, breezy, beautiful day in probably April. And at the very tippy top of an oak tree, a baby swallow was pecking away at his shell, ready to make his debut into the world. When his tiny beak finally broke through the hard shell, he screeched as loud as his tiny lungs would allow because, well, that's just what birds do. He screeched and screeched for what must have been hours, but there was no mommy or daddy bird to comfort him. Unable to open his eyes, he saw only blackness and felt only hunger and confusion. This big, scary world was brand new to him, and he had no idea how he was going to navigate it all alone. He was too young to realize this, but if he didn't get food soon, he was going to die. Down below, a family of butterflies were floating lazily amongst some daffodils, as butterflies do, when they heard the baby swallows cry for help. The two insects flitted their way up to the bird's nest and saw the poor baby swallow, all alone and hungry. The female butterfly pleaded to her mate to do something to help the defenseless baby swallow. The male, however, was afraid that the swallow's mother would return and make a meal out of them. After a few rounds of begging and the never-ending crying of the baby swallow, the pair decided to adopt the poor bird and raise him as their own. As time went on, the baby swallow's eyes opened, and he met his parents for the first time. Birds don't have mirrors, so the little guy had no idea that he looked nothing like his parents, and they never mentioned it to him. Although, he occasionally heard some of the older butterflies whispering about swallows, which he didn't understand. Eventually, it was time for the baby swallow, whose name was Ernest, to learn to fly. His father told him all about air currents and flapping speed, while his mother gave him all the reassurance he could ever need. With his parents on either side of him, Ernest looked to the sky, spread his wings, and hopped from his nest. He flapped and flapped, just like his father told him, and just as he was about to come face first with the forest floor, ooh, alliteration, his wings caught the wind and he soared up and up into the sky. Watching from below, his parents were elated to see their baby boy flying for the first time. Time, like their son above them, seemed to fly by over the next few years for the butterfly family. All of Ernest's friends started pairing off and spending time together, drinking nectar and flitting through the flowers. One by one, all of his friends found a mate until it seemed like he was the only one not paired up. Ernest's parents could see how upset this made him, so they started introducing him to potential suitors. Ernest met and attempted to court butterfly after butterfly, but he just couldn't seem to make a connection. He didn't understand. All around him, he could see butterflies floating through the fields or warming their wings on rocks. It all looked so normal and beautiful. He dreamed of the day when he would find a butterfly to settle down with and start a family, but he was starting to feel like it just might never happen. This feeling was intensified when he overheard an old, cranky monarch talking about how he was different and didn't belong there. He didn't understand it, but a piece of him agreed with the haggard butterfly. Something inside of him did feel different, like maybe he would never meet the right butterfly. One day, he went for a fly around the meadow and he saw this beautiful, brightly colored bird sitting on a tree branch. His parents had taught him to be wary of birds, so he didn't dare get too close. Ernest sat on a nearby branch watching the bird as he preened his feathers, and Ernest felt something deep inside that he had never felt before. He wasn't sure what it was, but he had to find out. Despite his fear, Ernest flew over to the bird's branch and said hello. The bird introduced himself as True, and the two talked and talked for hours until the sun started setting. Realizing the time, Ernest apologized and hurriedly said goodbye, heading back home. Over the next several weeks, Ernest and True saw each other nearly every day. It came to a point when Ernest could think of nothing but True. He decided he wanted to talk to his parents about him. One morning, when his mother returned home from gathering nectar, Ernest started telling her about this beautiful bird he met. He told her how True made him feel seen and accepted, and that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his days alone. Ernest was sure his mother would be happy to hear that he may have met his mate, but sadly, he was very wrong. His mother started to cry as she told Ernest that what he was feeling was wrong. She told him that he was only allowed to have those feelings for other butterflies, because that was the way nature intended it. Heartbroken, Ernest turned from his mother and flew away. After flying and crying for what must have been hours, Ernest finally reached his destination. True. Ernest tearfully recounted his conversation with his mother, and True listened thoughtfully. When he was finished, True asked the oddest question. Have you ever looked at yourself in the water when you take a drink? Ernest realized that, in fact, he hadn't, but he wasn't sure why True was asking him this right now. True took Ernest over to the pond and told him to look at his reflection in the water. Feeling silly, Ernest looked into the pool's surface, and for the first time, saw himself. He saw his feathers and his beak. True flew over to him, and together they gazed at Ernest's reflection. After a few moments, True broke the silence. You see, everyone has been telling you your whole life that you're one thing, but you're not that thing, and that's okay. In that moment, Ernest knew that he loved True. But more importantly, he realized that he loved himself. Because for the first time, he was able to see himself for what he truly was. Ernest flew back to his parents, desperate to try once again to get them to accept his love for True. This time, he brought True with him, hoping that perhaps if they could see how happy he was, they might change their mind. Together, True and Ernest began to explain to Ernest's parents how much they meant to each other and how happy they were. Ernest's parents, however, wanted no part of it. Ernest's dad demanded that they leave his house at once, telling Ernest he never wanted to see him again as long as this was the life he chose. Ernest's mother had been crying the whole time, saying almost nothing. Ernest looked at her, hoping she would say something, but she simply dropped her eyes and turned away. Ernest looked at the insect standing in front of him, the only family he had ever known, and then he looked next to him, at True, his future. And he did the only thing he could think to do. He grabbed his parents in his talon, and he and True gobbled him up, right there in the living room. Then they flew off into the sunset and lived happily ever after. The end. Ha! Bet you didn't see that coming. Probably figured this out because it's not super well veiled, but the moral of the story is, like, don't let society tell you who you are, or especially who you can love. And if your parents try to disown you, eat them. Probably don't eat them, but, like, don't put so much weight into their opinion, you know? Anyway, the point of this is, when you grow up gay and you're, like, constantly hearing people tell you how you're gonna meet the right girl and fall in love and get married, you kind of feel like a giant swallow surrounded by a bunch of butterflies. You see how everything is supposed to be, and part of you, deep down, really wants things to be that way, but you know that it's never gonna happen because it's not you, you know? So the sooner you allow yourself to just be, the happier you'll be. Anyway, don't let the insects in your life tell you how to live. Eat the insects. Swallow them whole and then fly the out of there. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching this. This video was maybe a little weird for you. It was maybe a little weird for me. Anyway, while you're here, click that subscribe button and that little bell notification so you can be updated every time I post a new video, which is every Monday. And, if you didn't like this whole story time thing, you can go yourself. The butterfly family. The butterfly family. The butterfly family.